I would caution that my page, we're all nurses, so we have credentials behind us. If you're going to the internet to find advice, you can find a lot of great advice on the internet. I'm very like pro internet. I like the internet for a lot of reasons, but it is tough because you can find a lot of myths on the internet too. So if you're going to the internet to find information about a certain topic, just make sure you're going to the right sources.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning into this episode of Mom Talks with Christa. I just finished up another awesome interview with my friend Liesel Teen from Mommy Labor Nurse. And if you don't know what Mommy Labor Nurse is, go to Instagram right now and check it out. Man, she has just so much information when it comes to pregnancy, labor and delivery, newborn tips, and so much more. And she talks about her goal of really educating moms out there, but in an easy and fun way. There's so much information on the internet, as you guys know. And so she just makes it really fun. So definitely check her out. We have had her Liesel on this show many times before. She's one of my favorite guests. So this time around, we decided to focus on myths around birth and what you can expect for your first newborn appointment. We get tons of questions about what to expect, what to ask the doctor, how to find a provider, and all that. So Liesel goes into that. Of course, we also wanted to dive into myths around birth because there's a plethora of information out there, and it's hard to always know what's true and what's false, what's been passed down for generations, and all that. So she kind of goes into three key myths that are kind of circulating and debunks them for us. And stick around to the end of the episode because this is our first Mom Tales of the Week. If you don't know what that is, it's our new segment where we feature answers and stories from you guys. Every Monday, we are posting questions on Instagram and Facebook and in our Facebook group, asking questions that will allow you to share a little bit about your side of motherhood. And so I will be reading your responses at the very end. So without further ado, here's my interview with Liesel. Who better to have on than Liesel Teen herself?
Yay. Hi. Thank you for having me. Always happy to join you, Krista.
Yeah, I'm so glad we're back and reconnected. So, for anyone that doesn't know, can you just tell us a little bit about you and what you do?
So my name's Liesel Teen. I am from Raleigh, North Carolina, currently a labor and delivery nurse, have been one since 2014, so over 7 years now. And I still work at the bedside every so often, about every other weekend I'm there. And then during my real day job is mommy labor nurse. So I'm the founder of this super cool page called Mommy Labor Nurse on Instagram. We actually just updated our website and updated our courses, but we have birth courses, and I do a lot of fun infographics and fun. I'm really into reels now on Instagram, and just, kind of educating the public in a fun, informative and relatable way to make birth a little bit less scary, because I know I've been a first-time mom. Also have two boys, been a first-time mom, and I know how scary it can be and how overwhelming it can be. So anything that we can do to make it a little bit less scary, I love to kind of look at it that way. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, if you guys are not following Mommy Labor Nurse, you have to do it because, like, I don't know, you guys have some of the best posts. I can't tell you the number of friends I've shown your page because I'm like, you need to check out Mommy Labor Nurse. Like,
Thanks.
are you pregnant? Are you trying to conceive? Like, check it out because I just think the way you guys share your information is fun and it's easy to understand, which, when
Yeah.
you go into the realm of parenthood, there's so much out there. So
Yeah.
it's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really what I aim to do. Is I want it to be relatable and, with a little sense of humor too, and just something that someone can really understand, because a lot of times you go to the doctor and you'll hear something, or you'll go to whoever, your midwife, your provider, and you'll hear something that they're talking about. Oh, we're going to do this GBS swab. And you're like, what is that? And then you come onto my page and I explain it a little bit, just in a more friendly kind of, this is what it is. These are the risks and benefits, and, what to watch out for, and blah, 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 blah. GBS is kind of a weird example, but that's kind of how I aim to present the information. So it's a little bit more digestible, I guess is the right word.
Yeah, no, definitely. That makes a lot of sense. And
Yeah.
so for today's topic, because we've actually had you on a lot of times. I think every time I have you on, I talk about how many times we've had you on. So I'll ignore,
Okay.
I'll slide past that this time for our audience's sake. But this time, we want to really talk about some of the myths around giving birth, because like we just talked about, there's so much information out there when it comes to giving birth, becoming a mom, that I'm sure there's a lot of myths that are just out there that
Yeah.
people are kind of circling through, families and all that. So let's talk about some of the biggest myths around birth, and let's just debunk them.
Sounds good. I have 3 written down. There's a lot more than 3 out there,
Mhm.
but I have 3 kind of bigger ones that written down. So the first one is about C-sections, and I get this question a lot in my DMs about, I had a C-section the first time, can I have like a vaginal birth after having a C-section? A lot of people don't even realize that it is possible to have a vaginal birth after you've had a C-section. It's not like once you have a C-section, you only have to have C-sections. It's called a VBAC, vaginal birth after a C-section, or a TOLAC, a trial of labor. In regards to VBAC, I get a lot of questions about this because a lot of the time it's from people who have had C-sections the first time, who they were unplanned C-sections, and they want to know if they can even try and have another vaginal birth. And it's quite possible. There are a few contraindications that you have to watch out for. If you've had your first C-section in a certain way, in a certain like if you've had a vertical, you call it a vertical incision, a classical incision, that is a contraindication to having another a vaginal birth afterwards. You would have to have a C-section. And then there are various other reasons, maybe that medical reasons that come up in a future pregnancy, like your placenta is covering your cervix, or you have twins and one of them, the first one, is presenting not head down. There's a variety of reasons that you wouldn't be able to have a vaginal birth. But just at like face value, 90% of people are typically eligible to at least try for a VBAC after having a C-section. Now, that, like I said, that goes to say, like, there's contraindications that come up. And obviously it's not 90% of people are going to be successful having a VBAC after having a C-section, but there is a very high percentage that a lot of people can at least try. And this is something to talk to your provider about. So I work at a hospital that we call it very VBAC friendly. So we have a lot of VBACs come through, and we love, VBACs. And the good advice that I've gotten in regards to VBACs, if you're looking to VBAC, is start talking to your provider. And if your provider is a VBAC friendly provider, they're going to be pretty open to almost all interventions. Like, they're going to be open to the fact that, if you want to get it, because some people are like, if you want a VBAC, you can't get induced. If you want a VBAC, you have to do it before 39 weeks. If you want a VBAC, you have to do this. And more VBAC friendly provider is going to be a little bit more open to certain circumstances. So that's a good tip I have for people who are looking at VBAC. Another thing in regards to VBAC too is, just kind of interview your provider during your prenatal visit. And if it sounds like that you're not at a very VBAC friendly practice, it's okay to switch providers at any point during your pregnancy. If you have that opportunity, and you have a different hospital that you could deliver at, or you have a different provider that you can switch to, if you feel like, oh, actually, I've heard that this provider down the street, like, it seems like I've interviewed them and they seem a lot more open to the fact that, I could VBAC. It's okay to switch. It's totally okay to switch. I don't want you to be ever afraid, to not switch, regardless if it's for a VBAC reason or another reason, just at, plain face value. Like, it's okay to switch care providers if you feel like you're not being well taken care of. So yeah, that is my first myth, that once a C-section, only C-sections. That's definitely a myth. You can definitely have vaginal deliveries after having a C-section, even after having
Awesome.
2 C-sections. We've had, moms deliver vaginally. I had a guest on my podcast early on, and she talked about her vaginal delivery after having, 2 C-sections. And it's not just for indications. If your baby got stuck the first time, you can still have a VBAC. You can still have a vaginal delivery. If your baby was too big, you can still VBAC, try and VBAC afterwards. There are very little like hard contraindications to VBACing, like I said in the beginning. But it's a lot of these myths that are like, people think, oh, my baby didn't like I never got past 6 centimeters, or I never got, I pushed for 2 hours. Does that mean that I'm always like, I'm never going to be able to birth vaginally? No, that's certainly not true.
Mhm. Yeah, we had someone on our podcast too that was kind of talking about her kind of search for a doctor that would do it because she had two
Yeah.
C-sections and then was able to have a vaginal birth. So that's really
Yeah.
cool to hear those
Yeah.
success stories.
Yeah, for sure. So my second one is a myth is your water will break before you go into labor. We hear that too, that people think that
Mhm.
it's like your water has to break and then you go into labor. Or people think that your water can't break before you go into labor. Like it always happens, you always have contractions first and then your water breaks at some point. And the fact is that everybody's different, and about a third of people will break their water pre-labor, and then 2/3 of those people will break their water at some point during labor, and contractions will start first, or your provider will break it for you artificially. But yeah, that's a good one, I think, just to talk about, because we get a lot of questions of like, people are just sometimes confused how the whole process works. Like, what am I looking for here? Like, I
Mhm.
think I think like this is the way labor is supposed to start, but I also have to be, worrisome that my water might break. So it's a little bit confusing for people. So that's just to say, everybody's different, and your water might break before you go into labor, and that will be the start of labor. It might break after you start having contractions, for a few hours at a time. It might break and then you don't go into labor yourself for a really long time, and you come into the hospital and we have to induce your labor because your body just, doesn't want to contract right now. That happens too.
Mhm.
There's so many different scenarios. So I thought that one was a good one. The last one I have is that a myth, labor will take less than 24 hours. So this is a good one because
Mhm.
that is true for some people, some first-time moms, that labor will, be quicker. And I know less than 24 hours, like that doesn't even seem quick, right? Like a whole day, that seems like a really long time. But what I really teach in my courses is that I want you to prepare for this long labor. Okay. It might not be long. It might be like 6 hours. It might like be really, really short. But if you go into it thinking, okay, this might be a 3-day process. Like, just, I might have to get induced, and then I might have to prep my cervix for a day. And then, we do Pitocin for a day, and then we deliver on the third day. Sometimes some people have labors like that. And so I like to set people up that way, saying it might be this long. And it's very likely, if it's your first baby, that it's going to be more than a day that you're in labor. And then if for some reason you go into labor and it's less than a day, then like, woohoo, you set the bar high, and you like exceeded it. So that's a
Mhm.
good one in terms of just lengths. That lengths vary. Everybody's different. Like I said, I know I said that in the previous question, but everybody's different. Some moms are going to have labors that last for only a few hours, and it's real, real quick. And
Mhm.
then other moms, it's going to take 3 days.
Yeah, I think a lot of myths, especially those last two you said, kind of come
Yeah.
from like TV shows or movies we see
Yes.
growing up. Because I
Yeah.
remember seeing, it was pretty much like the water breaks and they're like, oh, let's go to the hospital. And then like an
Yep.
hour later, they have a baby. And it's like, that's what we kind of like learn as kids and growing up. We're like, oh, that's what it is. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think one of the more realistic ish, there was issues about this episode too, but one of the more realistic births in TV was in Friends, when Rachel was having her baby. Cause remember,
Yes.
she was like waiting for so long. She was
Everyone
like,
kept going.
everybody kept going. And it's like, yeah, that's a first time baby. It can be like all day for a long, long, long time. So
Yes. And
yeah.
then, yeah, that's so funny. I knew you were going to bring that up when you're like, I was like, I know she's going to bring up Friends. We have that in common. Yeah. That's a good example of it for sure. Because I remember
Yeah.
like the people coming in, it would be like, they'd be in there for like 10 minutes and then like
Yeah.
leave or,
Yep.
um, yeah, adding on to the length of time for sure.
Yes.
Awesome. So, we kind of talk about all these myths kind of coming around. And so, how can a mom be sure something, I'm sure that's like an obvious answer to this, but, myths also, I feel like get passed down in family, like
Yeah.
generations too. So, how can a mom be sure that what she's hearing is an actual myth and
I
kind of
know.
get some more clarity on it.
It's hard. So my first go-to is always, talk to your provider about these sorts of things. If you hear your mom saying, I heard that if you raise your hands above your belly, your baby is going to, the umbilical cord is going to get wrapped around its neck. That is something from previous generations where they thought that was true. And you can't, I think it's something about like, you can't reach up high. You're not supposed to be doing so much work when it's something with that. I don't know,
Yeah.
but that is like a crazy myth, and that's definitely not true, obviously. So if you're hearing any sorts of something where you're like, just that doesn't quite sound right, definitely talk to your provider first. If for some reason you're hearing something from your provider and it doesn't sit right, because sometimes you come into these situations too, where are your provider says, oh, your birth has to go this way, or maybe your provider is saying, like from the previous question, you have to have a C-section the second time, and you're like, I don't know, I heard on Mommy Labor Nurse that like it is possible, like can we just talk about this a little bit more? So that
Mm-hmm.
would be my first advice, is like question them. It's okay to ask questions until you kind of understand, the logic behind it. And if for some reason you understand it a little bit more and you're still like, just kind of unsure, I have a whole page with like a lot of stuff on it, and it's
Mhm.
evidence based, and we don't put out stuff that is, any myths. So come to my website and type in the search bar whatever your question is or whatever your topic is, and see if we have some content on it, and see if you can figure out right from wrong. I would caution that my page, we're all nurses, so we have credentials behind us. If you're going to the internet to find advice, you can find a lot of great advice on the internet. I'm very like pro internet. I like the internet for a lot of reasons, but it is tough because you can find a lot of myths on the internet too. So if you're going to the internet to find information about a certain topic, just make sure you're going to the right sources. So like I said, we have credentials. If you go to my website, the About Me page, like all of the people who write on my website have credentials. And if you're going to another website, just make sure that you know where your information is coming from. This is like a doctor who's writing, these articles, or this is a nurse, or this is, somebody trained in this, this, that, or the other. That's just general internet safety, I would say.
Yes, definitely. And I think I know, because it's so easy these days just to like see a post and be like, okay, I'm gonna do that, and be
It
like,
is.
wait, how do they where
Yeah,
did they come up with that? Or
it is.
yeah. And I think you made a good point too about being your own advocate, because I
Yes.
think like it's so easy for us just to hear like, oh, this is what happened with this mom, so I need to do that too, or this is what's going to happen with me. And you need to ask questions and do your own research too, which is,
Yeah,
I know, a big thing you guys talk about at Mommy Labor Nurse.
totally. We love to encourage people to be their own advocate.
Awesome. I think that's great. So, kind of switching gears now, talking about the first newborn appointment. We get a lot of questions about what to expect, when it happens, and how they can kind of prepare for it. So, first and foremost, what can a parent do to prepare for this appointment? Like, is there
Mhm.
something parents should discuss together before this appointment happens?
First of all, I want to encourage you to find a provider that you trust. So this process should hopefully start even before you have your baby, in finding a pediatrician. And I know we're probably going to talk about some things to be on the lookout for in regards to that. But make sure you are finding a pediatrician that you and your partner, if you have a partner, are comfortable with. Good things to look for are like proximity to your house, and looking at like hours available. Some people really like weekend options. I love my provider because he's a family doctor, so I see him as well. And I like that he has on, I can call him on the weekend. If I haven't had to do that very many times, but there was once where I had to call him on the weekend, and he's just always available. So it's nice, that's something definitely to look for. A lot of people, like, on the contrary, like the provider that I go to is just one practice, but a lot of people like that there's a going to a bigger practice where there's all these locations, and you can always get an appointment like in 10 minutes, as long as you go, because there's like, it's just so big. And other people don't really like that because they like to, not be such a number and, go to a practice where they're always kind of seeing the same person. And maybe they do have to wait a day to see them or, whenever. So those are some things to kind of think about beforehand. In regards to decisions, there's not really too many decisions to be made beforehand, but I know sometimes people talk about like, well, do I have to make decisions about like vaccine scheduling and everything? And I would encourage you, like, definitely talk to your provider about that, but it's not like you have to decide, okay, I'm definitely going to, follow this schedule or follow that schedule, like right at birth. Typically with vaccines, they get, the hepatitis B in the hospital, and then they won't get their newborn vaccines until 2 months old. One decision in regards to vaccines that you might have to make is sometimes we have patients prefer to just get that first hepatitis B with their provider at the provider's office instead of right after birth, and that's fine. So maybe that's something that a decision that sort of needs to be made pre-birth. But regards to vaccines, that's stuff that can be made later. And yeah, there's really not too much like pre-appointment except finding a provider that you feel like understands you. And I would find a provider. On a good tip, honestly, is to ask your OB or ask your midwife of recommendations, especially if you really, really like, if you don't like your provider, it's different. But if you really, really like the midwife or the OB that you're going to, ask them and see if they have a pediatrician recommendation, because a lot of times they have relationships with people and it's the same, sort of practice. So that's definitely a good tip. And if for some reason, you can't, again, this is going back to the other question, if for some reason you don't like the choice that you've made, however old your baby is, it's always okay to switch. I switched my pediatrician when my older one was about a year, because I just, wasn't cool with the first practice anymore with some things. So yeah, just knowing that it's always okay to switch too.
Yeah, that's great too. Because I think with decisions like that, we think like we're locked in now, we have to stay.
Right.
So
No,
knowing
you
that
never are.
you're the parent, yeah, you have freedom to switch
Yeah,
anytime.
it's important to, we talk about advocacy during your prenatal care, and it's just
Mhm.
important, once you be a mom, it's kind of like practice, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so let's talk about the actual appointment. What can we
Yeah.
expect will happen at the actual first appointment?
First appointment is typically like 3 to 5 days post birth. Typically in the hospital, they'll see baby, and the rounding pediatrician will see baby and just, assess baby while you're in the hospital. And then that first appointment is usually the day after you get home or 2 days after you get home, something like that. So they'll do a full physical assessment of baby. The most important thing that they're going to look at is their weight, because babies have a tendency to lose weight in those first few weeks, even few days, and then few weeks sometimes. So they're going to be looking at weight loss and putting them on their chart and seeing exactly what their percentage is and looking at their physical assessment. They might, if for some reason their weight loss is a certain percent, they might want to draw blood to see what a certain blood level is. It's called bilirubin, to see what a certain blood level is, to see if, sometimes we have babies who lose a little bit too much weight and they have to go under those Billy lights, the big bright lights, because they're starting to get really jaundiced. Sometimes they have to go, back to the hospital for readmission. So weight is going to be a very, very important thing that they're checking for at that first appointment. And sometimes it's just a matter of like, okay, sometimes it's fine and their weight loss isn't drastic at all. Other times it's a little bit, teetering on the edge. They say, okay, just, feed, breastfeed, or, feed, and then come back in 24 hours and we'll just, keep assessing it and making sure that it's trending up. So weight's going to be very, very important. And then as far as their physical assessment, they're also going to check the length again. And actually, this is a funny thing. So with their length in the hospital, it's actually usually a little bit shorter those first few days, because if you think about baby's head and what it does in the birth canal, it's like really swollen when it first
Mhm.
comes out. So they usually like lose a half inch. So people are like, what? My baby shrunk, but it's just because
That's
the
funny.
swelling from the head. Yeah. So they'll check the length and then they'll check head circumference, and same kind of thing with the head circumference. Sometimes it's a little bit less. They'll check, heartbeat, breathing, their hips, their legs, eyes, ears, nose, mouth, throat, fontanelles. They want to check the soft spots on baby's head, make sure those, feel okay. Their genitals. So they'll check, especially if you have a boy and maybe you had your boy circumcised, they're going to check, that. And then they want to check, for if you have a boy, the testicles. So this is something I was talking to my pediatrician the other day about, actually, that it's so common for undescended testicles to get to like go undetected. So you'll want to make sure that your pediatrician is checking that to make sure that there's 2 testicles in there.
Yeah.
They'll check for that. They'll check obviously for, the baby's skin and, any birthmarks. They'll check the baby's umbilical cord and make sure that's okay. Common thing that might, not common, but sometimes what happens is the umbilical cord, most of the time what happens is it's starting to dry off and eventually it'll fall off, but sometimes there's a little bit of leakage that comes out. So I want to make sure to check that and make sure that that's not happening. And then they'll just check, they're not checking for too many developmental milestones at this first appointment. That's more as baby's getting older, but they'll just check reflexes, newborn reflexes and everything. And then they're going to talk to you about your feedings and how things are going at home. They're going to be asking you, how often baby is eating, if you're breastfeeding or not, and how often you're breastfeeding and how long you're breastfeeding, and asking about, your breasts in general. Do you feel like, babies, you're, do you feel super engorged? Do you feel like, you're transferring milk? And then asking about baby's intake or output as well. So asking about, diapers, how many diapers is baby now, wet diapers and poopy diapers, and then answer any questions that you have. I always encourage people to have like if you have an iPhone, just have a little note app open and just, if you think of a question over the next few days, just jot it down so you don't forget it. And they're always, open to answering questions too.
Awesome. Are there any questions that you think are really important to ask your provider in that first appointment?
They'll probably go over general stuff like if your baby has a fever, make sure you do this. You don't want baby to be having a fever over 100.4 in the first, 30 days of their life. So they're going to be going over general stuff like that. But it's okay to be asking about crying, like how much crying is normal. That's something that a lot of people are just like not prepared for at first, like that babies cry, and some babies cry a good bit, and that can be quite normal. It's okay to ask things like how much sleep, like what is the sleep schedule going to be like? How much sleep should my newborn be getting? Like how often should I be waking my baby up at night, or should I, be letting my baby sleep? And those are, I mean, I can answer that question. So those are the sorts of things, common things that we hear that people ask in those first few days, like, should I be, waking my baby up? And the answer to that question is every practice is different. Like some practices are going to tell you, yes, absolutely, wake your baby up, until they're 2 weeks old, or, wake your baby up until they're a month old or whatever. Make sure you always, never miss a feeding, every 3 hours, on the dot. And my advice is typically most pediatricians get around, if your baby is at birth weight. So typically what happens is, say they weigh 8 pounds at birth or 7 pounds at birth, and then they lose, 6 ounces. I don't know. So they're 7 pounds. Now I can't do math. 7 pounds, however many ounces. And then it takes them a week to regain their birth weight. Typically at that point, it's okay to let baby sleep for as long as baby needs to. And that's typically not going to be longer than like 4 hours at a time. Like you might get a little 4-hour stretch. You might not. Your baby might still be waking up every 2 or 3 hours, and that's totally normal as well. But that's usually my rule, with also the caution of every baby's different, and you have to think about, was your baby premature? Does your baby have this sort of medical condition? That's not a hard and fast rule for everybody, obviously. So that's why I always encourage you to talk to your provider more. But that's usually like kind of my general rule in terms of waking baby up and sleeping. It's okay to ask questions about safe sleep and sleeping positions for baby. A lot of people want to know, like, is it safe for, me to like, can my baby sleep on my chest, or, can my baby sleep in the bed, or can I, is this crib okay? Or is this bed? Because, you'd be surprised. Like, a lot of people just aren't educated on safe sleep, and they have, a bassinet, and they're like putting a blanket all, over a baby, or they're putting them in this way, or there's like, the bedding is all loose or something. So definitely ask those questions. Those are good questions to ask. And then a lot of people ask about like spit up and like what's normal. Is my baby spitting up too much? In the newborn period, it's not as common. That's usually, a few weeks in. Once baby's getting bigger feeds, they start to spit up more if they're really spitty babies. You might not have a baby that's very spitty, but reflux is a common occurrence in babies. So there's a lot of questions that moms and dads have, and whoever, care providers have, about reflux and spitting up, and like, is my baby even getting anything to eat? So that's definitely, definitely good questions to ask as well.
Awesome. No, I think that's all great, because I guess I would get so many questions about like what to
Yeah.
expect, how to find a provider. So I think that really covers it. That was
Yeah.
awesome. And of course, if you guys have any other questions in regards to, myths around birth, your first newborn appointment, check out Liesel's page, Mommy Labor Nurse, as
Yeah, we have
well.
a good amount of newborn stuff too. And we just added about 2.5 hours of newborn care content to our birth courses too. So
Oh,
if you're
awesome.
enrolled to our birth courses, you now have access to a bunch of newborn care stuff too, because we want to set you up on the right foot. I know it's just like new charted territory. I feel like motherhood, it's very like, your routine is much, much different. Your body feels a lot different. You now have to care for this little baby that you didn't really have to think about much,
Mhm.
beforehand. So schedules are different and everything. So yeah, it's can be overwhelming, to say the least.
Yeah, those courses, that's awesome. I know a lot of people have taken them, and
Yeah.
yeah, give good feedback. That's awesome. So I know you've probably answered this question before, but maybe it'll be like a new response. So I always like to do these
I
fun
don't think so, Krista. You know me too well.
I know, I'm like, maybe it'll be like a little twist on it. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I always like to end these with fun thinking questions. So if you could have a billboard made today, we could share one tip with moms everywhere, what would you have it say?
It would say, follow mommy labor. No, I'm just kidding.
You're not kidding. I'm
No, it
just
would say, yeah. No, it would say educate yourself and keep
kidding.
learning, because that is what mommy labor nurse is all about, is education. And, doing it, like I said in the beginning, we do it in the most fun, relatable way, because I'm all about education and I want you to go into birth and motherhood, feeling super prepared. So it would say educate yourself and keep
Awesome. I love that. And yeah, I kind of knew you were going to say that, but it's like a little twist
learning.
each time. It's a little different,
Yeah.
but it's good. And I feel like too, it's like you can't hear that enough, because
No, you
you
can't.
still hear
Exactly.
a lot of like people
And
that
there's
are just kind
always
of
stuff to learn too. I mean, I'm
exactly.
still learning stuff every single day, we all
Yeah.
are.
We're never too old to learn something, never too
Right.
into something to learn. I think learning is
Right.
amazing. And too, it's just kind of like we were talking about too, like not breaking the barrier, but generational like learning too. It's easy
Yes.
to fall into the trap of like, well, this is what my whole family did, so I should do it too.
Right.
So definitely I like that. It's awesome. And then of course, where can everyone find you? What courses do you have out right now people can check out and all that good stuff?
Yeah. So we are over at mommylabornurse.com. And like I said, we just got a new website. So it's all nice and pretty. Our courses are over there as well. We currently have 3: Birth It Up, the natural series, the epidural series, and the C-section series. You can just pick whichever one is best for you. So mommylabornurse.com, we've got our birth courses there. And then also just a big library of blog articles and podcast episodes. And we have a lot of free stuff that you can download on the website as well, like trimester prep packs. We have little notifications that you can get to follow not notifications, emails that you can get to follow your pregnancy week by week, where I give tips and tricks and, stuff to learn. So you can sign up for those. And we've just got a lot of great stuff on the website. So that's the website. And then I'm definitely most active on Instagram. So mommy.labornurse on there. And I'm posting almost every day, pretty much every day. So I'm over there on Instagram and I do, Q&As on Sundays. And then I also have a podcast of my own. It's just the Mommy Labor Nurse podcast where I do even, more deep dive into certain subjects and have, guests come on, and yeah, super fun. We got a lot of good stuff in the future to look forward to too. So
Awesome. Hey, and I love your reels too. They're so creative.
thanks.
They're so funny. I love them.
It's fun. It's really, really fun. I'm very much enjoying reels because like I was starting to get into TikTok when TikTok was like, like starting to make its appearance, but then reels came out on Instagram and I'm like, okay, Instagram's already like my platform. So let me just really get into reels.
Yeah. I know. I was like, I don't need another app. So like I had TikTok for a little bit and I was like, I can't do another app. So I was like, okay, it's locked into the same app. Makes it a little bit easier.
Exactly.
That's cool. I love it. Awesome. Well, thanks again so much for coming on. It's always a pleasure having you on, and I just love catching up. So
yeah, love it. Thanks for having me on.
All right, guys, it's time for our Mom Tales of the Week. And these are questions we post to our social media every single week just to get your take on motherhood, your funny stories, and so much more. They've been so much fun to read. So this week we posted, tell us the most interesting way your child reacted to opening a gift. So we did this because of the avocado story. I told it last week. It's a viral video where this little kid opens up an avocado, and where a lot of kids might be like, an avocado? What the heck is this? This kid in the cutest and sweetest way goes, an avocado, thanks. And it's just like this viral video that went awesome. And so we were like, it would be so funny just to ask everyone like how their kids have reacted to different gifts before, whether they opened up the wrong gift on accident, or maybe you got them the wrong thing, or maybe it was a funny like fruit thing too. So here we go. Number 1 is from Kara Hoffmeyer. I reuse boxes a lot of the time when wrapping gifts. One year I used a Little Bites muffin box to wrap my daughter's gift. When she opened it, she was ecstatic. She actually thought I got her Little Bites muffins for Christmas. When she opened the box, she looked disappointed once realizing that actually wasn't what I got her. It wasn't the reaction I was expecting. Oh my gosh. So you just need to, I guess, get her muffins next time. That is so cute that she was really excited about these muffins. I wonder what it actually was. I want to see what the comparison was. Because then next time, you know what? Just get her favorite snack and she'll be happy. Number 2 is Maria S. It was my son's first Christmas celebration and his first time opening presents. He did not care much about the gifts, but he had a blast with the wrapping paper. I could say that. I mean, you hear that a lot where the kids are more excited to play with, the boxes, the wrapping paper, bows, adult keys, so much more. I always remember when we would get big boxes to the house, like maybe it had like a computer in it or something, we would turn it into like forts outside. My dad would cut like the holes in it, and it was so much fun. Just a big box that was free. Number 3 is from Becca Sando. My 1-year-old took forever to open his presents, but once he realized what we were doing, he tried stealing everyone else's presents and opening theirs. I think this is pretty typical because you're kind of like, oh wait, I can unwrap anything that's wrapped right now? Okay, I'm gonna grab that one and that one. That's pretty funny. It's hard for a 1-year-old to understand exactly what's happening. Like, oh, this one says my name, so I can only open this one. Why can't I open that one? Okay, number 4, Laura Grossi. I've gotten my boys with potatoes and a few other random items in the past few years that they no longer trust me. I bought them an iPod this year and my boys refused to believe it was real. Ooh, that's a thing. After playing tricks on kids after a while, they're just not gonna trust you. I know I've seen those trickster boxes that people use all the time. I don't think I've been ever tricked for a gift on Christmas. I'm not sure. I'd have to think on that one. That's pretty funny though. Number 5, Sharon L. My daughter was obsessed with this backpack that was sold out everywhere. It was the one thing she wanted for Christmas. I searched everywhere for it and was finally able to find a store that had it in stock across the country, and they were able to ship it to me just in time. Talk about good luck. I told my daughter that I was so very sorry I wasn't able to find it anywhere for her. When she opened it Christmas morning, she cried tears of joy. Who knew a kid could want a certain backpack so bad? But it was definitely a proud mama moment for me.
Oh, that's gotta make it so like worth it when you get the reaction you were kind of hoping for, that it shows that they really appreciate and really care for this gift. Oh, these were all really good ones. I'm thinking of a funny one from when I was a kid. My sister and I, my mom got us matching necklaces and she had us open them at the same time. My sister and I, we're not twins, but we have the same birthday, so we always are used to opening gifts at the same time. But on Christmas, we opened up gifts and we got matching necklaces. And it was the year of Parent Trap. And anyone that's familiar with Parent Trap knows the lines where you're like, in the British accent, I'm going to totally butcher this, I'm sorry, but we open at the same time, we go, oh my God, we're sisters. And then she goes, Hallie, we're more than sisters, we're like twins. And it's all on camera. And we did not plan this out, and we literally put our necklaces on at the same exact time. So, good times. Parent Trap, you have to thank for that. If you haven't watched it in a while, I recommend it. Anyways, that's all the responses I have for this week. Thanks to everyone that submitted. And a reminder, we post new Mom Tales questions on social media every single week. So check them out. And if you have a funny Mom Tale story that applies to this question, comment below or comment on any of our social medias. All right, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week. Hey guys, if you found this or any episode of Mom Talks with Christa helpful, please like, comment, subscribe, and of course, share it with your friends. We release new videos every single Wednesday, and our new podcast is out every single Thursday. So lots of different ways you can catch us. And of course, if you're not following us on our socials, go ahead and follow us there. We've got tons of new content for you every single day. And finally, if you're watching this and doubting yourself, you're doing a great job. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.